She had dreamed of this day, sitting beside the window, flying first class for the first time. But the moment she stepped on board, the warmth she expected turned cold. The attendant's smile faded when she saw her skin. Eyes followed her every move, questioning her right to be there. What began as a simple flight soon became a quiet storm of judgment and humiliation. Yet no one knew who was waiting at the gate, and how one mother's arrival would turn disgrace into reckoning. Imani Carter was 15, bright, curious, and full of the kind of quiet confidence her mother had always encouraged. While most teens spent their weekends lost in screens or scrolling through endless feeds, Imani preferred sketching by the window, dreaming of the world beyond her neighborhood. Her mother, Simone Carter, was her hero, a self-made CEO who carried herself with calm authority and unshakable pride. To Imani, Simone wasn't just successful. She was proof that hard work could silence doubt. That weekend was supposed to be a celebration, a small reward for all the late nights Imani had spent studying, helping her mom, and preparing for high school honors. Simone had booked a quick trip to the coast, promising they'd finally relax before her schedule became hectic again. When Imani saw her boarding pass marked first class, she couldn't stop smiling. It wasn't about the luxury. It was about what it represented. Years of her mother's sacrifice finally visible in a single seat number. The airport buzzed with energy that morning. Imani followed the signs, luggage rolling behind her, eyes wide at the sheer size of everything. She checked her watch. Her mother was running late, caught in a last-minute meeting, but promised she'd join soon after boarding. Still, Imani wasn't worried. She'd flown before, but never like this. As she stepped into the cabin, the air felt different, cleaner, quieter, more polished. She straightened her posture, clutching her ticket, trying to look confident. But as she took her seat by the window, she felt it, the faint shift in attention, the sidelong glances, and the polite smiles that didn't quite reach the eyes. She didn't know it yet, but this short flight would reveal just how far some people still were from seeing true equality take off. Imani sat quietly, headphones in, trying to disappear into the hum of the plane. Around her, passengers settled in, business suits, soft murmurs, the occasional clink of glass. It felt grown-up, sophisticated, until it didn't. The first sign came subtly, a pause. The flight attendant stopped beside her row, eyes sweeping the cabin before resting on Imani. Her smile was tight, practiced, but her tone carried something else. "Sweetheart, are you sure you're in the right seat?" Imani blinked. She nodded, showing her ticket. The woman barely glanced at it before sighing. First class, huh?" she murmured, more to herself than to Imani, but loud enough for nearby passengers to hear. A few heads turned. Someone chuckled under their breath. The attendant's name tag read Carol. Everything about her, her posture, her tone, suggested authority, but under that was judgment. She leaned closer, lowering her voice. "You might want to check again, honey. This isn't economy." Imani felt heat rise in her chest. Her fingers trembled slightly as she clutched the ticket. "My mom booked it," she whispered. But Carol had already moved on, muttering something about mistakes like this happen. For the next few minutes, the world around Imani felt heavier. She could feel the eyes, curious, amused, disbelieving. A man in a suit across the aisle smirked, whispering something to his companion that made them both laugh. Her throat tightened. She stared out the window, counting clouds, pretending not to care. But inside, her heart was pounding. Then Carol returned, witty, this time with another attendant. They spoke quietly, occasionally glancing at Imani. She heard fragments. "Not on the manifest. Wrong ticket. Security if needed." Each word chipped away at the small sense of pride she'd brought on board. "Ma'am, we're going to have to verify your information," Carol said finally, this time addressing her like a problem, not a passenger. "If you could step to the back of the plane." Imani froze. People were watching. Cameras tilted subtly. Someone muttered, "What's going on?" She swallowed hard, shaking her head. I didn't do anything wrong." Carol sighed dramatically, her voice rising just enough for others to hear. "We just need to confirm your seat, sweetheart. Let's not make a scene, okay?" But the scene had already begun. Every whisper felt like a spotlight. Every chuckle felt like a shove. Imani's cheeks burned as she stood slowly, clutching her bag. Her hands shook. She could barely breathe as she followed the attendants toward the back. And then, her phone buzzed. A message from her mother. "Just boarded. Be there in 2 minutes." Imani's chest tightened with relief and fear all at once. She wanted to reply, to explain, but Carol was still talking, words sharp and cold. "You see, first class is reserved for certain ticket holders. Mistakes happen, but next time let's be sure before we sit up here, okay?" Imani's heart broke quietly behind her steady face. She wanted to vanish, to sink into the floor. Passengers whispered again as Carol turned away, satisfied. The humiliation hung in the air like turbulence that wouldn't pass. But at the front of the cabin, a familiar voice had just greeted another attendant. Confident, calm, and commanding, Simone Carter had arrived, and what she was about to witness would turn that quiet humiliation into something unforgettable. Simone Carter walked through the cabin door with the calm grace of someone who owned every room she entered. Her heels clicked softly against the aisle floor as she scanned the seats, until she saw her daughter standing at the back, head bowed, surrounded by attendants. For a split second, Simone froze. Then her expression hardened. The whispers around her didn't matter. All she saw was Imani's trembling hands clutching her bag. bag, eyes red from holding back tears. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. The quiet power in her tone cut through the cabin air sharper than any shout. "Is there a problem here?" The flight attendants turned. Carol hesitated, caught off guard. "Ma'am, we were just resolving a seating issue." The young lady, Simone stepped closer, pulling her ID from her bag, a sleek company badge embossed with her name, Simone Carter, Chief Executive Officer, Aerotech Systems, the same tech firm that provided this airline's flight management software. Her eyes locked on Carol's. "That young lady," she said evenly, "is my daughter." The silence that followed was heavy, almost physical. You could feel the shift, the unease crawling through every corner of the cabin. The smirks vanished. The whispers stopped. Carol's face drained of color. "Oh, I didn't realize." "No," Simone interrupted softly. "You didn't. That's the problem, isn't it?" Every word landed like a weight. Imani stood behind her mother, still frozen, watching strength take shape in human form. Simone didn't yell, didn't demand. She simply let the truth sit there, undeniable, uncomfortable, and deserved. A nearby passenger began recording. Others looked down, ashamed. Simone handed over the tickets again, her tone calm but final. "My daughter belongs here. Always has." Carol swallowed hard, mumbling something about misunderstanding, but the damage was done.
The illusion of professionalism had shattered as Simone guided Imani back to her seat.
The cabin was silent, except for the hum of engines and the quiet weight of realization. And though the flight had barely taken off, everyone on board knew they'd just witnessed something they'd never forget. The flight continued, but nothing about it felt ordinary anymore. No more whispered jokes, no more curious stares. The cabin sat in an uneasy quiet, the kind that comes after truth cracks the surface of comfort. Imani looked out the window, her reflection blending with the clouds. The sting of humiliation hadn't fully faded, but beside her, her mother's calm presence became a shield stronger than any apology. Simone didn't need to explain anything. Her very existence, her success, her dignity, had already said it all. Hours later, as the plane landed, Carol approached once more, her polished professionalism now replaced with visible shame. She offered an apology, then quiet, rehearsed, and empty. Simone accepted it with a nod, not for forgiveness, but for closure. Then she turned to her daughter, her voice low but steady. "Never let someone else decide where you belong." Imani carried those words with her long after they left the plane. She didn't just walk through that airport as a teenager anymore. She walked as a young woman who'd seen the cost of silence and the power of standing tall. What happened that day became more than just a bad experience on a flight. It became a lesson, a reminder that racism doesn't always shout. Sometimes it hides behind a smile, a policy, or a polite question meant to put someone in their place. But every time someone like Simone speaks up, every time a story like Imani's is told, that silence loses a little more of its power, because change doesn't begin in headlines. It begins in moments like these, when truth refuses to stay quiet. And as that plane disappeared into the night sky, one question lingered for everyone who witnessed it. How many more times will it take before respect stops depending on the color of someone's skin?